They said they wanted to pardon me. And I sort of say, pardon who? Me? My goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
To me to be pardoned, I will not accept pardon because I know I have got nothing to do with that coup, but also even trying to stop it. And for that reason, I said, I'm not going to accept pardon. But if you want to pardon Ojukwu, yes, it will be the continuation of the reconciliation that
right.
we had.
Nevertheless, in the slogan that was used during the war, which is to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done. That kind of sums up what you were trying to do. Is Nigeria one today?
Well, is it? Are we still not Nigeria?
I mean, in the real sense of a united country, united in a vision.
Tell me which country is that absolutely united?
Welcome back, everyone. So, Gowon had an exclusive interview with Arise News, where a lot of people were expecting him to, say the truth concerning Nigeria Biafra war and as well as other issues. And I love what Mr. Charles asked him here, that the slogan, about Nigeria Biafra war, that he paid over 3 million of Biafrans just to keep Nigeria one, right? So just ask him here if today Nigeria is one. So I would love you guys to just take a listen and hear what he said in this particular exclusive interview with Arise News. Just take a listen.
And this year, General Yakubu Gowon, the youngest political and military leader to rule Nigeria, turns 91. He was just 31 when that awesome responsibility fell on his shoulders, and he presided over the affairs of this country from 1966 to 1975. He came to office at a turbulent time in this country's history after 2 military coups in 1966. The first one that led to the killing of Nigeria's Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and the second, 6 months later, that saw the assassination of the head of state, General Aburi de Ronsi. General Gowon subsequently ruled this country for 9 years before another coup removed him from office. It was during his reign that Nigeria's bloody civil war took place, lasting for 30 months. As he accepted the surrender of Biafran forces, he declared that there'd be no victor and no vanquished, a declaration that was seen around the world as a magnanimous gesture of post-war reconciliation. 55 years later, as he celebrates the milestone of exceeding the age of 90, how does he think Nigeria has evolved in all that time? And I'm delighted to say that Nigeria's former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, joins me now. General Gowon, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
It is so nice to see you. So nice to see you.
To say that we're honored is an understatement. You became head of state, as I mentioned in the intro there, at the very tender age of 31. I mean, that must have been an extraordinary challenge for you. And I'm wondering how prepared you were for what clearly must have been a very difficult role.
Yes, indeed, it was 31 going 32. And that I've had a good upbringing from home, from school, from my various military training, and of course, brought up in a very strict religious condition.
So you fell back.
So I fell back on all that. Yes, I was not prepared, simply for to rule Nigeria, but I was as a loyal soldier, to be loyal to my country, to be loyal to my head of state, and to love my country. So I had that one, that upbringing, and so I was the military training, especially at the staff college in a level, teaching you how to deal with any issue, any problem, whether you know it or not. How to appreciate, we used to call it, appreciate the situation, appreciate the situation, and then evolve into, many courses, open to you to deal with that particular problem. After which, you can then choose one of those that you think should be able to, at the end result that you wanted. So that upbringing and training certainly, helped me in a lot of ways. But certainly I was not trained to rule, but at least trained, given sufficient upbringing to be able to either deal with the situation the best way you can. But of course, you know that you cannot do it alone. You have other people around you. And if you can relate with them as well, so that you can all together your various duties.
So it was a collective responsibility, although you were obviously the prime leader.
Absolutely.
Right. And of course, you came to office at that young age, let's not forget that, on the heels of the January 1966 and the July 1966 coup and counter coup. And that was a hugely destabilizing period for Nigeria. Was that what motivated you at the time to create 12 new states to replace the 4 regions?
No. Well, creation of 12 states, 4 regions. Yes, you have 4 regions, but it is the demand for the various communities that made me either to think of, why don't you, in order to satisfy their wishes, why don't you, if I may, also create inner states to satisfy them? And this is from the demand of the people. That came as a result of what happened January 66.
You talked about, General Gowon, about the fact that a lot of the people who were killed, those military officers, were from the north. Did that make General Aburi Ironsi's position from the very beginning almost untenable as someone from the south?
I did not know what was happening in Nigeria before that, because I was right in the UK on the coast. But I think some of the stories that you hear, there was trouble, that is part of the reaction. But probably I'll come to that riot, yes.
I mean, because the reason I asked that is that General Aburi Ironsi was assassinated literally 6 months after that first, because, and obviously there would have been brewing resentment towards him, because in a sense he personified to the people from the other side what they felt had been inflicted upon them.
Yes, I think honestly that could be the part of the reason, but the feeling I know later, because one of the feeling was that that from the other side was being was still considering finishing the unfinished symphony.
So you were not aware of the fact that there was going to be a counter coup in July 1966?
No, not at all, until that very night.
Right.
That very night, or early morning, when I was woken up to say something had happened in Abeokuta, and before you know it, I think the news has spread over. And I was on telephone trying to find out that I know that Generosity was in Ibadan with the full meeting with the all the traditional rulers, and just to warn him that God is this person and he should be very in the Jeffrey. That of course
It was too late.
Too late. By the time I got in the government house telephone, unfortunately, already something had happened. But the instruction that I gave the senior officer in charge at that time was to make sure that if he was kept safe, got taken safe somewhere until God turns him able to sort out the insurrection that had already started and what had to prepare.
Right. So he was then assassinated.
Unfortunately,
How did you become aware that you've been chosen to become the next head of state, to replace him essentially?
well, it is from after the effort of the chief of staff's headquarters are going to be, I think, attempt to try to to bring law and order in the battalion. And of course, unfortunately, the troops that he sent, certainly decimated. And then, of course, it has to come to me. Us then, like the acting chief of the chief of staff, to go to Ikeja to try and see if I can sort out the problem. And of course, I think at that time, that is where a lot of big crisis for a number of days. There was no government, and of the civil servants, you are worried because of system dependent that was done at that time. So there was all sort of efforts, either from then, either to for her to go and put things right in occasion. And of course, but one day, please, Father, they normally ask their former African general, but only at that time, I was German party chief in chief of. So that probably helped. They listen to me, and if I mean, I said, we just got to make sure that things, I put right, and we did. So the civil servants certainly came. They wanted to make contact with the most senior officer, military officer, to give them, the instruction. Since, the old system is still like military, that was in control. But I didn't tell you the story how, I was from the contact between the civil servants, and also some of the foreign were British and American ambassadors or high commission. You had to come and see before come and see to wish to find out who who is the leader of the insurrection, but at the time, in order to make sure that at least things start going on. And so they came, and they saw me. And of course, there was discussion there from to what is happening and the head of state. I didn't want it. I want to revenge the trauma or the trade to remain either or as minister or get into GRC or Minister of in order to ensure that we restore the discipline and loyalty of the body of the army, in support of tradition,
But they offered it to you.
but in the end, of course, Twadan has offered it to the junior officers if they want to, and any of them wanted to, the gender, our leaders was to look after the population to restore loyalty, discipline, and loyalty for the. But however, in the end, in fact, the most of the young officers, they're saying that I'm the only one that they would accept. That is irrespective from any or from any of the group in the or in the army. So although I was not in the most senior, there were senior people now or DDP, sugar, and others. But unfortunately, they said they did not want anybody but for me to give them the leadership. And so that was how the leadership came to me.
And of course, subsequent to that January 66 coup, the July 66 coup, and you subsequently becoming head of state, there were attacks on people from the southeast in the northern region, and even in parts of the western region as well. The people in the southeast call it a poldra. What was your assessment of what happened, and what did you try to do to stop those killings, people from the southeast?
My goodness, it was something that we did not expect. That was more of reaction of what either happened in an area. Now, if you remember before Iran's did you remember something that the regions are going to be disbanded and all going to be provincial when you became the minister, that is going to become provinces. And of course, there was a lot of reaction, fear and reaction from all the regions, well, of course, except this Midwest probably touch on it because it is already quiet. Normal that some they have their own vision, but there was reaction in the in the north and the west, against that unitary system of government, which it is very people I think because they were afraid of being overwhelmed by some of the people from the east. There was that in fear because that was why the leadership that in the northern political leadership, the wiped out, and the military leadership also were wiped out at the same time. And the action, really, that is, that really created, some of the thing that happened. It is not the military that that did it. The military one that Trump did was the revenge, coup, whereby all the officers that took part in the coup were, of course, taken in, and but I do not know what they did to them, but at least those of them that were able to be taken from the various prisons, in the country. Yes, I think they were unfortunately, penetrated. But some of them that live, for example, in Zimbabwe, later on, tried to fight. And unfortunately, he was killed in operation. Terrible towards the Indian people. Super Banjo, he was taken, I think, somewhere in this and in others. So really, from a lot of ways, thing that happened, it was more or less the reaction of what happened in January and some of the.
And you couldn't stop.
No. No, of course, I had to stop it. My goodness, I remember during that time, during that crisis. Yes, what one has to do in whatever way one could to get the leadership authorities in those areas to stop from got bus nonsense. And I spoke to some of the chiefs, some of the political leaders that were there, people that at least people that can do something like to douse the situation. And with Bauchi, I remember certainly remember that the Emir of Bauchi that I had to speak to has my name. So he was my namesake. His name was I could be with certain Bauchi. Less of it, I spoke to them, and to do whatever we can, and also the soldiers, to make sure that the people were protected. And it is not from the act of the military, but the reaction of the population because of what's happening to their leadership when you come to think of it.
But then, of course, the people in the southeast felt that that was the clearest indication to them that they were no longer wanted in the union that was Nigeria. They then broke away. And of course, after that came the horror of the Civil War, because you went out to bring them back, to forcibly bring them back. That Civil War happened under your watch. As you look back at that period with the benefit of hindsight, could that conflict that claimed millions of lives have been prevented?
Yes, I think I have said that if the East does not break up from Nigeria, yes, and that was what I kept on saying. Why people say that you want to say no, I have a responsibility, to keep Nigeria, Nigeria. And as far as I'm concerned, that is my duty. And I won't. But if from the situation gets to this stage, when I have to choose between allowing the breakup, or happy to stop it physically. I know where my responsibility is because of my loyalty, love and loyalty to the country.
Indeed. And but there were attempts.
Sorry. So let me just say, sure. And the question of the millions of people that we say between, right from the beginning, if I made sure that it is not a war against the Igbos as such, but it is in order to stop the breaking up of Nigeria. Right. Yes, and so what I did, what I did, I get a code of conduct. How the operations was to go, etc. And we are not fighting the people. Make sure that we protect them, or people protect the women, pregnant women, and children, and and you will only take up arms against famine. Those who take up arms against you. And honestly, and with the instruction that anything that was done against the population that is not correct would be dealt with. And it is that was done. And it is not millions of people. Now, we tried to send leaflets people to be sure that honestly it is not fight against them, but we had to stop the government, leading the union, what we have. And, and even they should not for me to talk, but of course, when you know the names that I was called at that time, they also were from the Van Dau, the whatever it is, there was no name that I was.
It was the propaganda of the war.
Okay, accepted. We used to say, please don't move, don't run away. But of course, they used to tell their people they should run away from those vendors, from those horrible leadership that is going to treat them. And that is how a lot of people lost their lives. And then when we tried to say the question of feeding, feeding the people, for example, we used to allow aid to come, but we say let it come to Nigeria and let it be inspected by international people, so that there is no question of what on the try smarts might do. And but the other side refuses. So what can you do? We also arrange for food to be able to be taken in by road and etc. That of course, the other side it will jibble. You say no because of either way, Nigeria is going to poison the food. Whether we are afraid of weapons being in there, but of Nigeria will be poisoning the food, and so they will say no to get aid. But and in the end, really a lot of people, it is not from the people killed by gunshots, right? But all the palm trees trees that I saw when I went to that part of the country, and I saw all those black spots on trees, palm trees, etc. And I was wondering what sort of disease is this on those trees? And someone said, no, those are bullet marks. So most of the bullets were more on the on those trees,
Not on people.
not on people.
But I mean, that was obviously when the war had started and advanced. Prior to the start of the war, many analysts have suggested that if the Aburi Accord had been implemented, the tragedy of the Civil War might have been averted, and they blame you for reneging on that Aburi Accord. Is that how you see it? Did your government renege on the Aburi Accord?
Well, I think that is the interpretation that we not know whether that accord was the actual final result, which was not to be done until after we got all.
But you agreed to the accord when you were in Gath.
No, this is the accord. It is not a question of agreement in accord. This, it is when we come back home, and I made it. I made a statement. When you come back home, and I make a statement that you about Aburi.
Right. Because that's why it was called an accord. An accord means that you had agreed.
No, what accord? No, but then it has to be done in Nigeria before Friday.
So you needed to come home and discuss it.
Unfortunately, you know, when the first people didn't want to believe it, I was having a serious attack of either fever or whatever it is, and I could not make any decision.
At Aburi.
No, at home.
Right.
When we arrived in the home, and Tojuku was one who then, when he came, he went and made made the statement. Made the statement about the Aburi code, and the governor of the Midwest, Dib Edge, then rang me at that very early hours of the game. To tell me, he said, "Had you heard?" So I said, "Had not." And you know what Oju God said? So I said, "No, at the end of it, baby, you know that happened, but that is the reason why I could not make from this statement, which would have then clearly say exactly what the what we agree with the and he told me that, oh, we said you are going to move a car, that the military is going to be, etc., are going to be controlling people now from each, from each opposition, for example. And he was what I said today, is that actually, honestly, is that what me I did too? But he said, yo. So I said, well, honestly, I do not know what that is. So that was the fun in the time, and then later on, had to ask the other governors, what they think, and they were able to say, well, that is not what it is. So we had to organize a meeting of all
the governors, and he was invited to attend so that we can deal with the Akori Accord. And we met at NIFO in Benin, and he did not turn up. And of course, all the secretaries to the government, all the were there, all the governors were there. He was invited, but of course he said because of security reason he cannot come, so he didn't come or send anybody. And we discussed that Aburi discussion. And, for example, the permanent, the secretary to the government, the West, did ask, came and appealed to me, as a Christian, please, if we can make sure that that accord, what we agreed is in the true spirit of Aburi. And I told him, as a Christian, I can assure you that that is the way, it is going to be. And we had that meeting. In the end, we invited him to come. He did not come. So, and when we ended the meeting, of course, the spirit of Aburi was totally, as it was sort of, I do not know what accord he was reading, because he came to the meeting with prepared papers of things that he wanted, and of course we discussed them one by one, agree on some, disagree on some. Like, for example, to give you one of the major issue, although we say that the military would be zoned, but the control, and then he wanted, those zones to be commanded by the governor. Say, you have a military zone in the north, will be commanded by the governor of the ministry. In the east, will be commanded by him, and military in the west by this thing. And of course, we did not agree with that one. And, certainly it was not one of those agreed. But none of us went there, with any senior official, secretary to the government, or senior, etc. We did not. We just went there, as far as we are concerned, to be able to meet as officers now and then, to agree to be able to get back home and resolve our problem at home. That was, my understanding, but that is not his understanding. And so when we went to NIFO and discussed this, the spirit of Aburi was certainly included. The only thing that I added was that no region, will can secede,
Right.
Can from the
So that there was a clear, from your point of view,
Absolutely.
misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
The war, of course, ended in 1970, and you came up with that no victor, no vanquished declaration, which was seen by many people, both at home and abroad, as a extraordinary, magnanimous gesture of post-war reconciliation, unprecedented in many ways. Would you say that 55 years later, Nigeria has healed from the wounds inflicted by that terrible war, and that no victor, no vanquished declaration of yours was fully adopted in this country?
Well, at least we've survived how many years now? We survived how many years?
To be 65 this year.
Well, we've survived 65 years. Since the war, let us say.
Yes, 55 years since the war.
Since the war. At least, if there is anything, my whole idea is that when all this thing is done, at least we can be able to come back, and rebuild the country and make the great efforts that have been done. Yes, we've gone through, through dangerous time, whereby as though we're going to break up, etc. But we've now come back. And we are now improving at every stage.
But you do know that survival is not the same as thriving.
Oh, thriving! Isn't Nigeria thriving today? Come along, let us have it. Have we not gone beyond? What we were 55 years ago? And we still trying to get the perfection. Certainly, I did not mean that things will be absolutely perfect the way they want, or anybody wants. But at least we will survive as a country, improving at every stage.
Right.
To where we are. And if we look at things the way things are going today, most of the people that were affected by the war today, and great progress and happening in the East, in all the states in the East. I certainly did not try to stop development and improving the situation as the time goes along.
That was, I think, epitomized in the slogan that was used during the war, which is to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done. That kind of sums up what you were trying to do. Is Nigeria one today?
Well, is it? Are we still not Nigeria?
I mean, in the real sense of a united country, united in a vision.
Tell me which country is that absolutely united. Tell me, what it is that you do not have different, viewpoints, etc.
Yeah,
Even
but what would you
today,
advise? I mean, let's assume that what you're saying is correct. What would you advise is the best way to deepen Nigerian unity going forward?
Well, it is up to up to the people. As far as I'm concerned, whoever you are a Nigerian. I love you. I trust you until you prove to me, otherwise. So it is up to the Nigerians, to either accept the way I accept Nigeria, whichever way it is today. If it is one or if it is not one, but we are still Nigerians. To me, it is Nigeria that I hope I will be until I die. If after I've died and other people said that is not they don't want Nigeria at all, then of course it is up to up to them.
But it is important for the different parts to feel a sense of inclusion, because one of the things you tried to do in 1966 and 67 was to bring back everybody, and at the end of the war, you said there was no victor, no vanquished. In other words, that everybody had an equal stake in this country. So that sense of inclusion informed the way that you tried to run this country. And I wonder whether you think that that is an essential part, that inclusion, sense of inclusion is an essential part of trying to make people feel that they are part of a united Nigeria.
Well, that is why, honestly, my belief, belief and trust in democracy is sincere, and that is what I have been trying to do. Well, as I've said, when I grew up, and when famine came and Nigerian in a crisis came in, I said, we want to return. I hope the few loyal ones of us can return the government to the status quo. That is not to the military, but to back to democracy. And when the July thing happened, yes, terrible thing happened. I certainly do not accord that. But one try to see if one can save the situation. And of course, when the bad thing really happened, all that now remains is whatever it is that remains, will try to continue and then try to put it right. And that is what one tried to do. And this is the reason why all the government that come, I do not involve myself in governance, but I at least advise people views express left, right, and center. We try to go almost to the precipice, but somehow the goodness of Nigerians, they will come back and continue to try to find the best way of living.
Right.
And so this is the way I hope one day we'll be able to have the perfect system that satisfies everyone.
And General, we're almost at the end of this very interesting conversation. You've spoken about a lot of things, but let's speak finally about yourself. How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I want to be remembered as someone who loved his country, Nigeria, who loved Nigerians, and who pray if I cannot fight it, at least pray for Nigeria to continue to be a country that all of us would love. I know it is impossible for every country to be absolutely perfect. Today I heard that Nigeria's Trump says that Nigeria might be one of those countries that they are going to deny visa. So it meant I cannot go to America anymore. Well, it meant that I should try to make my country better than America so that I can stay in Nigeria.
So my people, that is it. So this year, Gowon will be 91 years, and there are lots of people we are expecting him to tell us the whole truth concerning Nigeria Biafra war as well as the Aburi Accord. But as you can see here, Gowon is not ready to tell us the whole truth. And what he said here that Nigeria is surviving, you know, within the end of Nigeria Biafra war till today. And that is quite unfortunate that he pied millions of people, like millions of Biafrans, just to keep Nigeria one. And we are just surviving. We are not living. Look at what is happening all over Nigeria today, even in his own state. Fulani terrorists are paying them like flies. And this is what's going on. Pied millions of Biafra just to keep Nigeria one. And we are just surviving. We are not living. And also, it is quite unfortunate that he still don't understand that Nigeria is not meant to be won. So my people, that is it. I say make I bring this update to you guys. Please do well to subscribe for more updates. Like the video, share it as well. I will see you guys in my next update. Goodbye for now.
Welcome to Shamra Senior